Hello, 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 and welcome to the latest installment of And Sarah Appeared. My name is Sarah, and I'm appearing before you today because I did not expect to wake up and be crying behind an interview at all, or be crying behind a segment that I saw in an interview. And I was like, what is this? I thought I was going to get a good laugh out of something, or something inspirational, which I did. I got good laughs and inspiration, but it also came with some tears. I'm actually referencing Mr. Ron Howard. I watched an interview that he did with on a platform. There's this, I believe he's a journalist. I don't know who this man is, but he has a really good platform, and I like his journalistic style. His name is Graham Bensinger, and he's on YouTube. So I was watching the interview that Ron Howard was doing with Mr. Graham Bensinger, and he was talking about his little brother. And let me tell you something. I've been watching this man's brother on TV for as long as I could remember. Clint Howard is hilarious to me. Clint Howard will always be hilarious to me. I did not know Clint Howard was related to Ron. No clue. I had no clue all this time. And I'm sitting up here laughing my head off to Clint Howard, because Clint Howard is just, he's funny. He's always been that oddball, ridiculous character that you cannot do the film, you cannot do nothing. It won't work without him, because he's just, the magnetism that he brings to his absurdness, to the characters that they be having him playing, is funny. Oh my God, he's so funny. It's sideways funny. It's like, what? This is absurd. This is crazy. He's always an oddball character. So with that being said, I think this is out. I'm sorry. Like, I'm in the middle of like taking apart this little pen of mine, and I'm like, I think my pen is out. But no, Clint and Howard, day and night, as far as what Clint and Ron Howard, day and night, as far as what I was observing. But Ron Howard said something, and it got me a little verklempt. He said something, and he was like, I was always raised, I would say with more strict parameters, more strict upbringing. The parents were, and this happens when you're an older child, your parents tend to be more strict on you, and they tend to be a lot more laid back when it comes to the younger kids. And I think for me, it was because of an age gap. My baby brother is 11 years younger than me. I know what it is. My mom got older, and she said, I'm not yelling at all this stuff no more. All the things that I was not able to do, all the things that I was not able to experience, my brother was able to. And instead of me like being jealous or being like, why do they get this now? Why I actually encouraged their freedom. I encouraged them to be able to go out and do different things. That's what Ron Howard was actually saying. He said, even though I grew up strict, and I grew up with a lot of limitations on me, I've always encouraged my brother's freedom and his right to be able to express himself, because I was jealous of that. I wanted it. I hated that it wasn't me. And I understand that. It's a different type of jealousy. I've dealt with that. It's not that I'm jealous of, and it wasn't just like that with my siblings, my cousins. Out of the siblings that were made up of my dad, his two brothers, and his sister didn't have children, but between my dad and his two brothers, the two brothers raised their kids to be more liberal, and we were raised to be more restricted. But between the four of us kids, I was the one that had all the restriction on me. I could not do anything. No sleepovers, no nothing. Couldn't do anything. And so when it was like school, church, that's it, grandma's house. And so when it came to my siblings, the second oldest boy, he's 5 years younger. Then my little sister's 6 years younger. Then the baby boy's 11 years younger. So we've got gap in between us, right? And with that being said, I rooted for my siblings' freedom because it was the freedom that I never had. I subconsciously kind of like vicariously imagine what life, or imagine how experiences would be if I was only able to do certain things that my siblings were able to do. And then our cousins even noticed the difference, and our cousins were like, yeah, we don't have to do this and that. Our parents don't make us do this and that. And we were just mind blown, like, whoa, like, your parents let you do this, your parents let you do that. And so even with that, it was like I had stricter rules on me. I had different things that were going on, and it was very strict for me. It was very like cutthroat. Like, you listen to what we say, you do what we have to say, and you do not get out of line. But everybody else was able to do whatever they wanted. And so for me, it was a jealousy, but it was a different type of jealousy. It was a jealousy of, how could you make such a stark difference between us as kids? But while you're making that difference, because I now emotionally don't even know how to equate, or emotionally I don't even know how to move forward or proceed in certain scenarios and situations. Due to lack of experience, I realize how damaging that can be to me, and I don't wish this on nobody. I have certain social cues and qualms, not anxieties, but qualms that are like completely quirky or different or weird. And it's like, it's outwardly weird, and it's like, okay, I have to learn how to live in this and live in the groove of it and accept myself for how I am, and kind of the things that, how I interpret and develop different things. But when it comes to my siblings or anybody else, I want them to live their life. I don't want them to have to go through those challenges, because some of these challenges that I have, I don't even speak about them. I don't even speak about them. Well, I do now. But I don't even speak about them because people don't even realize and understand what it's like to not know how to emotionally computate certain scenarios, because you've never been in those scenarios, or you've never had the experience. And it's also a little bit of resentment that sits in, because it's like, damn, why was I singled out? Why was I the one that couldn't do this and couldn't do that? And yet it was like, anytime that I spoke out against anything, anytime that I had an opinion, anytime that I did anything, or I vocalized who I was, there was always chaos. People were just like, you don't speak, you don't say anything. And it was like, why can't I not say anything? Why can't I not speak? And so there were moments and times where I had moments of rebellion, where I said whatever I wanted to say, and I definitely got disciplined for it. I definitely got consequences. And I think the whole point was to break you to the point where that fire gets put out in you. And it's not that, and it did. For a while it worked, and the fire was just out. The fire, like, I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything. It is what it is. I don't feel like going through the headache. I don't feel like going through the heartache. I don't feel like going through all of this. Like, I'm public enemy number one anytime I have anything to say. And now it's like I have to continue to say what it is that I'm going to say, or do what it is that I'm going to do, because now I see that it was a ploy to kind of like, not have me ever arrive in my element, not have me ever be. And I think when I looked at the interview that Mr. Ron Howard was giving, it was like, I totally understood, like, I resonated with what he was saying in a very weird way, to the point where I started to cry. And I was like, why am I crying? This is not that. What is going on? Why am I getting such an emotional trigger? And it's like, because what he said made me feel heard and seen. And he articulated, a lot of people jump up and they say, you're jealous, you're bitter, you're this, you're that, you need to let go. And they don't understand that the very thing that you wish you could do and how you want to show up in your own personal power, when you have restrictions and limitations on you, and when you reflect and you look you look at it and it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense to kind of be an anarchist against my parents, because they only did what they thought what was best for me. And even though I'm confused about why they chose me to be the one that was kind of like, I don't know, the example, I understand from a perspective outside of myself that what I went through wasn't necessarily the healthiest approach to my development, but I do understand that in hindsight there's a better way of doing things. And so if I can prevent this from happening, this kind of like emotional lack of emotional intelligence, if I can prevent the lack of the emotional intelligence because lack of social experiences that I've had, if I can prevent that with my siblings or with anyone else that I see is going through that, I will. I would tell the next person. I would tell any young, and I've told this to my siblings. Do not be like how I am. Go out there and live your life. And I wasn't like that just because I chose to be like that. It's something that you are groomed into. And then because I'm into the woo-woo and I see beyond what's going on in the physical plane, there were things that were going on spiritually that were on the agenda of putting my fire out. And I would tell my siblings as well. Well, I wouldn't have to tell them, because here's the thing. When you have your fire put out and there's something underneath you brooding, waiting for you to express yourself, to come out of yourself, to really reveal who you are and how God made you to be. When you have your fire smoldered like that, it's very dangerous, because one day it's going to erupt and you could end up lighting fire to everybody around you who didn't even deserve to get burned. And that's what happens when the fire gets put out inside of you. Eventually it's going to erupt and it's going to burn everything around you until you have to start over again. And that's why it is so important not to put the fire out in young people at a young age. Like, we're too controlling when it comes to, I feel like we're too controlling on the wrong things. You should allow kids to speak out, explore themselves, and have experiences. You do have to pull back the reins, especially when it comes to who your kid is hanging out with, in which manner that they're doing things. You do have to pull in the reins when it comes to ideologies and when it comes to their belief systems. I think parents should absolutely be influencing their kids when it comes to belief systems and different things. And I think that's the problem. Enough parents are not influencers. Parents are being influenced by everything outside of them, and they're not being an influencer in their own reality, like in their own worlds. What people do online and on the internet, they do that because they're trying to influence. They do that because they're called influencers, but real influencers are not trying to influence anybody to do anything. They're just showing up as their natural selves. They're just showing up and appearing as their natural selves. They're not trying to influence nobody to do nothing. Real influencers love individuality. They love people who are off kilter and counterculture. Real influencers are influenced by things that are bigger than them in this world, like nature. Like, real influencers don't get online with the intent of, I want to get this many followers, or I want to have this, that. No, I get online to show my presence because I carry a global impact. That's why I'm an influencer. I am the only one that will be a major influencer and an impact in my children's lives. My kids are going to look at me and say, yeah, my mom has been doing that, or my dad does that. My dad was on that. My mom was on that wave like 10, 15 years ago. So I really don't care. Like, oh yeah, what's next? Okay? Real influencers. So when it comes down to it, I totally understood, and I totally, like, I don't know. It just, I got it. Like, I just, it resonated with me. Like, yeah, like, it's not that you be jealous. It's not that you wish this and that. It's a different type of jealousy. It's like a misunderstanding. Like, I don't understand why I was the one that had to be the responsible one. I don't understand why I was the one that wasn't allowed to express their rage. I don't understand why I was the one that was being held to a certain standard. And I don't believe that it was anything that was of any significant boost to me. But what I do understand is I have siblings that look up to me. I have siblings that are underneath me, and I have siblings that I actually love and care about. And I don't want them to go through life with everything being so serious and strenuous on them. I don't want everything to be so militant for them. I want them to be free. I want them to be able to express themselves. And yes, they're going to have responsibilities. They're going to have things that they're going to have to deal with in life. Who doesn't? I don't need to be a part of all that. I don't need to be a chaperone in that. I don't need to have a say in that. I just want them to experience things differently than what I ever have. Because I know how I experience things caused for me to have an arrested development, and it caused for me to not be able to function in certain areas of my life. And now I'm like a well-oiled machine. I'm functioning. And it's new. It's brand new. But you know what? It's kind of uncomfortable being a 30-year-old infant. It's kind of uncomfortable, coming out of the womb and just experiencing different things and experiencing life for the first time, because everything was fighting against you. Everything was going against you, not to be heard, not to be seen, and not to be felt. So when you come across little moments and glimmers of humanism, like how I came across in this podcast episode, it brings you, it grounds you, it brings it back home for you. It evoked emotion in me. I was able to understand a little bit more about myself, and hearing his truth about him being honest about, resenting the fact that he couldn't live exactly like how his younger brother did, but then also allowing his younger brother to explore his own pitfalls in the freedom that he's had, and being able to like back it up and be like, whoa, I went out far on this edge of the wharf, and I want to reel it back in, and I want to come back onto shore. And it's okay to dip your waters and go out there on the seas and do what you want to do. But you got to reel it back in, and you got to come back to the shore. And I think that's kind of like, I can identify with that. I can identify with seeing not only your sibling, but seeing, anyone else in your family that's kind of living this life that you want to live, but at the same time, you love them so much, you see that there's a spiral that's happening, and you just want them to reel it back in. And then even seeing myself from that perspective at some points and instances in my life. So yeah, just the Ron Howard, Clint Howard whole dynamic my mind was blown. I had no freaking clue. My mind was blown, and I was pleasantly surprised, but I was also a little miffed because I was like, I was not trying to cry this morning, and I don't know what is going on, but I feel like there was some real, it felt so good to kind of release that. I was not expecting that. But yeah, that's that's all I had to say on that one. I just saw a title of another thing. But yeah, really good interview, really good visuals. Loved the dynamic and kind of like just the realness of it. It was like, damn, like he a regular person, and it feels good like to experience a regular person that's just like going through everyday things and having different perspectives. Refreshing.